Today's topics: just peace in Ukraine corresponds to China's strategic interests. In the Russian Federation, a one-time cash incentive for signing a contract with the Russian army is now set to more than $20,000. Britain and Germany team up on defense as fears grow Trump might ditch Ukraine. Good afternoon. Now, these topics in more detail at UATV English with me, Henry Keane, bringing the hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine as usual. It is hard to believe, but it was a Chinese initiative, maybe, to make it possible. On July 24th, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, held talks with Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China, Wang in Guangzhou, China. The meeting of the heads of foreign policy departments of Ukraine and China was held to develop contacts between President Volodymyr Zelensky and obviously Chinese leader Xi Jinping. The main topic of discussion was the search for ways to stop Russian aggression and China's possible role in achieving a stable and just peace.
My Chinese colleague Wang has made it clear that he agrees that what is needed is not an illusion of peace, but a just and lasting peace. This is what we should strive for. That is, there is no need to strive for any temporary solutions.
But what does it mean? What about China? Why does China send such a powerful signal? Why now? What's next? So many questions.
Recently, both Ukraine and Russia have shown willingness for negotiations. Although the conditions and timing were not yet ripe, we support all efforts conducive to peace and stand ready to continue to play a constructive role for a ceasefire and resumption of peace talks. China is closely following the humanitarian situation in Ukraine and will continue to provide humanitarian assistance to the country.
Anyway, what was that? Just talks again. After all, the Celestial Empire knows how to remain meaningfully silent, and silence and very conditional, to put it mildly, neutrality with the tacit actual strong support of Moscow is beneficial to China. Low oil prices and many other goodies worth billions of dollars annually. Well, there's a reason for cautious optimism anyway. What is happening means that China understands that it is better to conduct a dialogue with the West than with Russia, while Russia is assured of eternal friendship and is used economically and politically in favor of China, of course. And in order to continue to do so, it is important not just to stop the war, but at this point, as Dmytro Kuleba puts it, to avoid competition between peace plans. What do we do if something is not clear enough for us? That's right, we ask the United States. The United States Department spokesman Matthew Miller said, I quote, "I'm not going to make any estimates of what might happen or try to gauge expectations of what might happen, but I think it's important for China to learn directly from Ukraine about the damage Ukraine has suffered because of Russia's war," he said. Miller added that China is doing a lot to fuel the Kremlin's war machine by supporting the recovery of Russia's defense and industrial base. And the United States believes that at any time it is important that any country, and of course including China, hears Ukraine directly. At the beginning of April, sorts of a competition for the larger number of cannon fodder mercenaries, delivered, intensifying between Russian regions. It was back then when a price tag for a one-time payment for a contract with the Russian Ministry of Defense jumped to 1 million rubles. Well, when the losses are great, and that is the only thing great during war that Kremlin instigated, the only way to get more cannon fodder is cash. That's right. Russians were always keen to die, but not for free, after all. So now Moscow raises the death fee against almost twice as much, up to 1.9 million rubles for his lump payment, indicating that the amount does not depend on other lump payments. That is, enterprises and private companies and any other interested parties in Russia can top it up. So when you die in Ukraine, your family can afford themselves a nice German-made car or something. The relative KICA, which is my personal term and stands for Killed in Criminal Action, so KICA for the Moscow region is 32 times lower than, say, in faraway regions of Russia like Tiva, and 25 times lower than in deep north regions like Buryatia or Sakhalin, and 16 times lower than in outskirt region of Pskov, for example. So actually, Moscow region KICA averages 8 times less than any other region in Russia. Well, that is, Moscow practically just do not fight this war, and so does not really care about the whole mess. However, the resources, human, political and economical, of the provinces are actually depleting and rapidly, and the war is creeping slowly towards Moscow whether the Kremlin wants it or not. So the regional Russian authorities are taking measures. They intend to outbid people in other regions in order to meet the quota of supplies of cannon fodder to the front from their own region. A very Russian roulette, indeed. There have been different assessments in the social media about when the Russian Federation will be forced to resort to a last-minute new wave of mass mobilization. The measure is obviously extremely unpopular, and so the Kremlin will try to delay it as long as it is possible until it is not possible anymore. Because of regional elections in the Russian Federation, yes, no draft till September this year, that much is clear, and then everything depends on how delusional the political tactics of the Kremlin is. Mobilization is an obvious signal to continue the war. Nevertheless, the Kremlin may try to cancel the mobilization, which is unlikely to happen if you ask me. Well, go on, ask me. And I will put it in easy terms for you. I think the Kremlin will announce a new wave of mobilization to use this as a tool, as a pressure factor for the West. Because 300,000 fresh soldiers ready to die is a powerful diplomatic argument, is it not? Britain's new Labour government is seeking deeper military ties with Germany and France, and for obvious reasons. No, it is not only about Ukraine, it is about survival of Europe, no less, as all dictators are closely watching, and if the West is not going to find unity, they might. As Politica puts it, Europe's two largest donors of military aid to Ukraine, Germany and Britain, are buddying up in a defense pact as fears grow that victory for Donald Trump in November's US election could spell disaster for European security. Obviously, concerns that Washington could dramatically drop in support for Ukraine next year have only increased since Republican candidate Trump picked J.D. Vance as his running mate. Well, Vance repeatedly stresses his opposition to U.S. writing what he has called blank checks to help Kyiv fight off Russian invasion. A very communist rhetoric, that I must admit. Americans who are actually fighting for Ukraine on the front lines, in Ukraine, and on the Capitol Hill might strongly disagree with J.D. Vance, as they have concrete, solid proof that America is writing checks to Kyiv for getting rid of its lifetime adversary, Soviet Russia, in its ugly abomination form of the dictatorial Putin regime. Moreover, founding fathers of the United States would have disagreed with J.D. Vance, as the whole idea of democracy was to prevent dictatorship. And that is exactly what American checks did until now. And J.D. Vance or any other politicians clearly are aware of the fact. They just do not care sometimes, and that staged carelessness is exactly what Putin needs these days. So if J.D. Vance and company does not see a threat of Russian dictatorship in the very heart of Europe murdering hundreds of thousands of people and annexing the lands, well, then Germany and France clearly do. They clearly understand that if the crime of aggression against Ukraine is not going to be stopped with blank checks, and instead is tolerated by J.D. Vance and company, then inevitably NATO soldiers would have to step in instead at some point, and that would be a point of no return, after crossing which the checks for caskets for American and European soldiers will inevitably follow.
Can I thank the Leader of the Opposition for not only raising the question of Ukraine, but doing it in a way which can maintain the unity across this House, which has been so important to the Ukrainian people. And I can assure him that we are, of course, talking to Ukraine about how they deal with the Russian aggression that they are facing, have been facing for many, many months. And I will continue to try to do that in the way that he did, which is to reach out across the House to share such information as we can to maintain the unity that is so important.
Indeed it is. And indeed Great Britain is indeed a great supporter of Ukraine, and that will continue until its new centre-left Labour government, until Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which won a landslide election this month. The country's new Labour government is more enthusiastic about forging deeper defence cooperation with European allies than its Conservative predecessor, and moved quickly to sign a cooperation deal with Germany on Wednesday. As part of a whistle-stop tour of Europe, including France, Poland and Estonia, over 48 hours this week, British Defence Minister John Healey closed the pact with his German counterpart Boris Pistorius at the Bendler Block Ministry complex in Berlin. We want to strengthen our arms industry, Pistorius said, standing next to Healey. We want to work more closely together in the development, production and procurement of weapons and ammunition. Well, in easy terms, the whole come-together deal between UK and Germany in France has one most important aspect that some might lost in the haze of swift changes. A deal does commit all sides to start standardizing their weapon systems and ammunition. And is there a better sign of unity these days than actual unity of arms? That's it for this episode. It was me, Henry Keane, and our team at UATV English, hopefully to bring some hard truth in easy terms for you. Please like, share and comment. Your voice really matters, as it in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be shared worldwide. More to come already tomorrow, so please stay safe and please be tuned for us. Thank you. Goodbye. See you soon.